When this millionaire became a solo dad, he discovered an unexpected love with his nanny. Amazing. Mark Jennings's life had unraveled overnight. As he stood in his lavish suburban home, the echo of laughter from his children felt like a distant memory. At 35, he was a self-made millionaire, running a successful tech company in Chicago. But what good was wealth when he was a solo dad to 2 young children? His heart ached with the loss of his wife, her bright smile now a ghost haunting every corner of the house. The pressure mounted daily. Work demanded so much of him, and parenting felt like an insurmountable challenge. Desperate to maintain the delicate balance between high-powered meetings and shuttling his kids to school, Mark hired Claire, a 24-year-old nanny with messy brown curls and a spirit that lit up the rooms. The moment she entered their lives, it was as if she brought warmth back into their home. She immersed herself in their world, crafting elaborate bedtime stories, and helping the kids with school projects. Claire had a knack for understanding their needs in ways Mark sometimes struggled to. Yet every moment spent with her deepened the tension within him. She was the bridge between a father overwhelmed by grief and children desperate for love. But each time their eyes met, a flicker of something more potent ignited. She was the help, in his grand mansion, while he was the man who built it, an unbridgeable gulf that filled him with unease. Mark's colleagues often raised their eyebrows at the depth of his relationship with Claire, whispers turning to speculation about his judgment. Who was he to blur the lines between socioeconomic classes? Dread settled in his stomach. He was terrified that his budding feelings for Claire could undermine his career. Torn between office politics and a craving for companionship, his mind raced, each thought colliding with the next. He should have been focused on his upcoming pitch, a chance to secure his legacy, but all he could think of was the way Claire laughed, her lightness breaking through the heavy air of grief that hung over his household. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But just as clarity started sneaking into his daily turmoil, a scandal hit the headlines involving his company. Public scrutiny amplified, his name dragged through the mud as every tabloid speculated on his worthiness as a leader. His pulse quickened with dread. Claire remained resolute at his side, her steadfastness a stark contrast to the wavering opinions of his peers. Still, every glance she cast towards him whispered the secrets of division and doubt that held them apart. And then came the call about the crucial business meeting, an opportunity that could elevate him back to safety or ruin him entirely. Caught between the energy of his children's laughter in the other room and the storm brewing on the boardroom floor, Mark felt the walls closing in. What moments had he prioritized? Could he really step away from everything he'd built for the chance at a real connection with Claire? In that moment, with stakes so high, the decision pressed on him like a vice. Time slowed as the echoes of the past mingled with visions of the future. Could he risk losing everything for something so uncharted and profound? Mark stood at the threshold of his office, heart racing, palms clammy as he contemplated facing the realities of both his personal and professional lives. Each tick of the clock seemed to echo the uncertainty that laced through him. He was poised to step into a meeting that could either salvage his company's reputation or seal its fate. Yet the thought of any of his colleagues scrutinizing his decisions felt unbearable, especially given that he had been leaning on Claire so heavily for support. In contrast to the polished walls and sterile air of the boardroom, the warmth of his home and the innocence of his children called to him with a magnetic pull. The laughter that had once filled his mansion now felt like a fragile memory. The gleam of sunlight through the kitchen window reminded him of the joy he yearned to hold on to. Claire had opened a door to that joy, and stepping away felt treasonous. He had always perceived himself as a hard-nosed businessman, able to juggle profits and ambitions at will, but the depths of familial love and responsibility started unearthing emotions he thought he had buried. His childhood echoed back at him. His father had been all business and no warmth, and Mark had vowed to be different in his own parenting road. Yet, here he was, considering sacrificing genuine connection for the sake of a corporate ascent. What have I become? The question hung in his mind as he felt the weight of expectation would deflate him if he let it. He thought back to Claire, her laughter ringing in his ears, her ability to communicate with the kids, their needs. Somehow she managed to make the mundane magical. Why couldn't he also give love a chance? This wasn't an equation of success defined merely by a number in his bank account. With a newfound resolve, Mark returned to the kitchen where he found Claire sitting on a stool, sorting through the kids' art projects. The sight of her, so effortlessly blending into this once lonely space, rekindled the fire in his heart. He could see it now, the way she mirrored hope, how she transferred the warmth of family back into their lives. But the complex layers of expectation, judgment, and potential fallout clouded his thoughts. Mark approached her, a tightness in his chest. Would it be reckless to propose that they carve out some time together? And yet he froze. The risk felt monumental, perhaps even more daunting than the impending board meeting. "Hey, Claire," he began, the muscle in his jaw contracting unconsciously. "Can we talk?" She turned, her eyes brightening with a smile that somehow eased the storm inside him. She had a way of doing that. "Sure, what's on your mind?" She was inviting, genuine, a contrast to the sharp cynicism of the corporate world. "I've got a meeting coming up that's going to determine a lot," he said cautiously. "But it's also made me think about everything else." The double meaning lingered heavy in the air. The juxtaposition of business stakes and burgeoning feelings danced just beneath the surface. Before he could articulate his thoughts clearly, the echo of children's laughter rippled through the home. It was a sweet yet jarring reminder of what really mattered, their future, soft and untainted by the chaos in his mind. Just then, he wondered if perhaps Claire hadn't come into their lives just to help navigate the present, but to rewire his future, to teach him what really mattered. But as the meeting loomed ahead, so did the uncertainty shackled to his heart. Could he really take this leap with Claire? Would the weight of professional judgment crush what could blossom anew between them? The tension gripped him tighter than ever, as he braced for impact. The time had come for him to decide, not just for business, but for love. But what would that decision cost him? Mark entered the boardroom with a steely composure, yet inside, the turmoil brewed fiercely. Voice of reason countered voice of self-doubt, warring within him. He settled into his seat, the smooth leather cool against his skin, but it did little to soothe the heat of his impending decision. As colleagues filed in, their conversations buzzed around him like static, distant, and unrelated to his escalating internal battle. This wasn't merely a meeting, it felt like a precipice. The air was thick with expectations, each shared glance between the board members hinting at scrutiny he felt all too keenly. He made small talk absent-mindedly, but his mind roamed to Claire, to what their conversation had hinted at, the burgeoning connection that lingered, promising an alternative to his cutthroat world. Anxiety knotted around his thoughts. Could he balance the corporate demands with these new emotional territories? Would he really risk the corporate ladder for a connection that could dissolve under the weight of professionalism? The meeting was called to order, and Mark pulled himself into focus. Numbers flickered on the screen, illuminating financial discrepancies that needed addressing, crises that demanded his attention. But as harsh realities unfurled in front of him, the vibrant vision of Claire sorting through art projects crept like sunlight through the dreary haze of monotony. "Mark?" The clear voice of his financial advisor jolted him back. "We need your input on this." He released a measured breath, straining against the instinct to retreat into his mind. This was his world. He had earned his place at the table, after all. Finding his voice was not a problem. It was where he chose to steer the company's fate that led to conflict. "We need a new strategy. The focus can't just be on numbers. We have to build a connection with our clients. They need to trust us," he declared, watching the eyes in the room shift, some raised in surprise, others narrowing with skepticism. As the discussion unfolded, he took the risk to intertwine personal values with business objectives, mentioning the importance of nurturing relationships. Tension ricocheted off the walls, and he could sense palpable divisions. Colleagues shifted uncomfortably, some were supportive, but others were already formulating counterarguments, summoning their reservations about his newfound perspective. While they debated metrics and projections, Mark felt a watershed moment triggering within him. What if he approached business through the lens of empathy, much like he had experienced with Claire and his children? What if kindness became a strategy instead of a weakness? He could feel the reverberations around the table shift. Slowly, the argument advanced with his new approach, bolstered by his growing confidence. Those who had initially resisted began to reconsider his viewpoint, his passion igniting room for discussion that hadn't previously existed in acknowledgement of the value in connection, both personal and professional. As the meeting finally adjourned, exhaustion washed over him, but alongside it was a flicker of triumph. His heart raced anew, not from anxiety but from empowerment. In risking his corporate image, he had exposed a vulnerability that resonated, echoing the vulnerability he felt toward his family, and the tugging weight of his attraction to Claire. He left the boardroom and opened the conference room door, his mind set on a new path. Would he continue to shroud his aspirations beneath insurmountable expectations, or could he boldly embrace the complexity of his heart? Yet, even as clarity surfaced, doubt persisted. He still needed to confront the implications of his emerging feelings for Claire. Would the connection they shared hold steady, or would it falter under the scrutiny of his colleagues? As he walked through the office, the clock ticked loudly in the background. The weight of his evolving duality now loomed larger than ever. The next steps in his journey would demand more than guts. It would require navigating uncharted waters filled with both opportunity and risk. The moment of truth was approaching, poised at the intersection of personal and professional realms, a choice that could lead him to newfound fulfillment, or unravel everything he had built. Could he, Mark, grasp both love and success without sacrificing one for the other? The ground beneath him shifted, and he resolved to find the answer. Mark paced through the office corridors, the echo of his footsteps reverberating in his mind alongside the fading tension of the board meeting. Each stride felt deliberate, yet a magnetic pull on his heart slowed him down with persistent thoughts of Claire. She wasn't just a fleeting idea anymore. She had transformed into a tangible thread of possibility weaving through the fabric of his corporate world. As he reached his office, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and stress, he paused for a moment to collect his thoughts. He had spoken up. He had taken a risk. But now, the implications of that risk loomed large. What next? How would he balance the demands of the corporate ladder with the new emotional complexity Claire brought with her presence? Remembering her laughter from the art studio ignited a warmth in him, yet he was still tethered to reality, the pulse of the business world around him, relentless and unforgiving. Feeling the weight of indecision, Mark sank into his chair, fingers drumming rhythmically against the desk surface. He had to act masterfully, making connections while safeguarding his budding feelings for Claire. It was a professional trap laden with personal stakes. Each flicker of doubt he encountered began to consume him, the fear of losing control creeping back. Suddenly, his phone buzzed, jolting him from his spiral. It was Claire, her name lighting up the screen like an urgent beacon. A message flashed. "Can we talk? I have something on my mind." The vulnerability in her words resonated with him, mirroring his own internal chaos. He hesitated. Was he ready for this conversation? Diving deeper into his feelings could either solidify their connection or shatter the fragile thread binding them. With a new resolve, he typed back, "Absolutely. When works for you?" The response came almost immediately, proposing a meeting at their favorite coffee shop, a space where they had shared light-hearted banter over lattes and pastries, but now became a stage for a much weightier dialogue. Just over an hour later, Mark found himself seated opposite her in the softness of the cafe, the aroma of freshly ground coffee enveloping them. He caught her gaze, the concern mingled with warmth in her eyes. She was more than a nanny, more than a connection. There was a shared world between them now, a realm touching both their professional lives and something dangerously intimate. "Thanks for meeting me, Mark," Claire began, her voice steady yet tinged with uncertainty. "I've been thinking a lot about us and about the way you spoke in the boardroom." His heart raced. He needed to be vulnerable yet vigilant. This conversation could redefine everything. You've been on my mind too, he admitted, weighing his words carefully. What are your thoughts? Claire took a deep breath, searching for the right combination of truth and caution. I appreciate what you said about connection. It's a hard thing to navigate, especially in a corporate environment. But I can't help but wonder if we can find a way away from those expectations. Her honesty bathed him in warmth, and the realization struck him she understood the duality he faced. Yet, lurking beneath the surface was the nagging question, could they truly harmonize their individual lives with the professional demands that overshadowed them? As they talked, exploring vague boundaries and underlying emotions, Mark felt a growing sensation of freedom meld with fear. His personal desires were emerging from the shadows where they had been tucked away, gathering weight and substance. Yet with each passing minute, he became acutely aware of the lingering doubts still whispering that their connection could falter under scrutiny. Unlike the clear-cut equations of business, the intricacies of love felt perilously unpredictable, the stakes almost paralyzing. The discussion meandered back and forth, grappling with possibilities and constraints. When the time came to part, a tension settled in the air, an unspoken acknowledgement that would change everything. Let us take this one step at a time, she suggested, uncertainty crooning through her voice. Mark nodded, determination seeping through him. Step by step. He walked back to his office, pulse racing, knowing the next conversation wouldn't just reshape their relationship. It could also define the course of his career, challenging everything he believed about professionalism and vulnerability. What impact would this newfound connection have on his career ambitions? Would he find the courage to embrace both love and success, or would fear ultimately dictate his choices? The sense of impending confrontation loomed large as he approached his desk, the weight of his unfolding journey pressing intensely on his shoulders. Mark entered his office, the familiar scenery now tinged with uncertainty. The day was still young, yet the air felt heavy as he considered how his conversation with Claire would unfold in the unforgiving landscape of their professional lives. He had opened a door to possibilities, but was he truly prepared to navigate the terrain that lay ahead? Seated at his desk, he looked at the blinking cursor on his computer screen, but it blurred before him as his thoughts spiraled. What did he want? What was he willing to risk? Visions of Claire's smile haunted him, that same smile that now carried the weight of uncharted expectations. If he allowed himself to act on the connection they shared, would it invite scrutiny from his peers, or worse, jeopardize the progress he had fought to achieve? The sound of a soft knock on his door startled him. It was Lisa, his executive assistant, bearing the look of someone versed in corporate expectations and the unspoken hierarchies that permeated their office culture. Mark, do you have a moment for the project updates? She asked, clipboard in hand. Yeah, let us go over it, he said, pushing his conflicting emotions aside to focus on the professional task at hand. As she began detailing the project milestones, Mark sensed his capacity for empathy and connection begin to erode. Every word she spoke felt mechanical, overshadowed by the warmth he had briefly tasted with Claire. Each update reminded him of the corporate machine's relentless grind. Are you even listening? Lisa's voice broke through his daze. Sorry, I was just, he swallowed hard, searching for an excuse. Lost in thought. Well, don't be too lost. We need you present for the next big pitch, she stated, her tone laced with irritation as she gathered her papers. Her expression shifted, concern tightening her features. Look, Mark, is something going on with you? You seem different. He inhaled deeply, debating whether to share his personal turmoil or maintain the status quo. He had always been the composed leader, confident and unshakable. What would letting her see this moment of vulnerability cost him? Just figuring some stuff out, he answered, his voice losing its edge. The truth felt too close, the risk of showing his authentic self dangerously clear. Once Lisa exited, Mark leaned back in his chair, adrenaline coursing through him. The demands of the office were tightening their grip, and the prospect of stepping outside of his usual professional demeanor left him conflicted. He realized that navigating this burgeoning relationship with Claire required more than just a brave facade. It needed an openness to vulnerability that he was still mastering. As the day wore on, Mark found himself increasingly distracted. He contemplated the possibility of inviting Claire for dinner after work, not just as a means to connect, but as a commitment to explore their evolving relationship more deeply. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. How would they blend their lives amidst the strictures of their jobs? Could they cultivate a space for their personal feelings without causing professional fallout? When evening finally arrived, Mark's heart raced as he prepared to compose a message inviting her to dinner. His mind buzzed with worry, but something deeper stirred within him, a growing conviction that he might be able to merge the fragments of his reality into a cohesive whole. Before he could write anything, another message from Claire appeared, shattering his moment's peace. "Hey, can we talk again? I want to share something important." His pulse quickened and dread flooded through him. What could it be? Instinctively, he gazed around the office as if searching for answers in the muted tones of the walls. His thoughts were trapped in a vortex of what-ifs and maybes. The evening sunlight filtering through the office blinds offered no comfort. He realized the time had come to confront not just Claire's message, but the tangled web of emotions he had started to weave. What lay ahead could redefine him in ways he hadn't anticipated. Mark stood up, the chair scraping against the floor echoing like a warning bell. The stakes felt insurmountable, but within him, a flicker of determination ignited. He took a breath, stepping away from his desk, ready to face whatever awaited him in that next conversation with Claire. The moment of truth loomed closer, and with it a potential path of discovery. Would this unfolding relationship challenge him to become a more complete version of himself? Or would fear snuff out the spark before it had a chance to ignite? His heart raced as he hesitated at the door, ready to dive back into the turbulent waters of their connection. Mark turned the doorknob, each click echoing like a countdown to an uncertain future. He stepped into the corridor, the fluorescent lights overhead buzzing as if aware of the inner storm brewing. The office was winding down for the night, quiet now except for the hum of distant conversations. He could feel the weight of his decision pressing against his chest, the duality of professional decorum and personal desire wrestling for dominance within him. He hesitated, uncertainty tainting the air, before moving toward the conference room where Claire often met him. The walls, once merely a backdrop to countless meetings, now felt like a threshold between his old self and his burgeoning identity. With every step, he questioned his motives. Was this about personal fulfillment, or merely an escape from the rigidity of his life? As he entered the room, Claire was already seated, her fingers tapping nervously against the tabletop. Her gaze met his, vulnerability and resolve mingling in her expression. Mark's heart raced. This wasn't just a professional meeting. This was a pivotal moment laden with unspoken implications. "Hey," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Hey," she replied, her tone softening. "Thanks for coming. I know it's late." As they settled into the conversation, a palpable tension filled the room, heavy and electric. Claire began to speak, her voice trembling slightly. "I wanted to talk about us, what happened the other day." Mark swallowed. "Yeah, me too." This admission felt monumental. Each word hung between them like a thread pulling them closer, yet threatening to fray at any moment. She took a deep breath, gathering herself. "I've been thinking a lot about how we've been navigating this. And honestly, I don't want to hide what we feel just because of work." Her honesty resonated deep within him. It was the very struggle he faced, a clash between his professional identity and his personal desires. Mark sensed a turning point. Here was an opportunity to explore an authentic connection that he had long dismissed as impractical. "I'm afraid," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid of what it could cost us professionally, personally." Claire looked contemplative, and the air grew denser. "I get it. But what about what it could give us? We can't keep pretending this doesn't exist." Could she be right? Were the risks truly worth the potential rewards? The flicker of determination within him stoked into a flame, urging him to take a stand for the kind of life he genuinely wanted, a life that accepted both personal and professional harmonies. Mark met her gaze, probing the depths of her eyes, searching for answers. "You're right. I can't pretend anymore. Perhaps it's time to embrace this." As their conversation deepened, they began to weave a narrative of possibilities, stories of risks, of transcending boundaries, of finding strength in vulnerability. Mark felt a surge of clarity, his mind racing with the reality that opening himself up to Claire might also mean transforming into a new version of himself, one more honest and embracing. As they wrapped up, Claire's smile was brighter than he had seen in days, infusing him with confidence. So, should we give it a real shot? Outside of this place? Yes, Mark asserted, the word feeling like a vow. He could no longer deflect the gravity of this choice. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. Just as he stood to leave, a new apprehension flickered through him. But we need to be smart about this. We have a lot at stake. Absolutely, Claire replied, her expression shifting to one of determination. We can figure it out together. Mark nodded, grateful for her understanding and the path they might journey. But as he exited the room, the weight of their burgeoning connection settled heavily on his shoulders, accompanied by a sharper awareness of the consequences hovering at the edge of his decision. Would embracing this relationship bring newfound strength or unveil more challenges than he anticipated? As he turned off the lights behind him, an unsettling realization danced at the back of his mind. Was he really ready to unravel the tightly knit fabric of his established life? With the door closing softly behind him, Mark found himself retracing their conversation, eager and anxious at once for the potential paths forward. The unfolding narrative of his life had become more complex, and the stakes had never been higher. What awaited in the aftermath of this honest exchange? Something far more than he could have ever prepared for. Stepping back into the night, Mark felt the air shift around him, charged with a new energy. Each step echoed his commitment to embrace change, yet uncertainty still clung to him like a persistent shadow. He paused on the sidewalk, the chill of the evening air sharpening his focus. Tonight had been a breakthrough, a confrontation of feelings he had long buried beneath layers of practicality and expectation. Yet, the more he thought about Claire and their unfolding connection, the more he confronted the realities of what lay ahead. Driving home, Mark's mind raced with scenarios. Would their relationship blossom into something beautiful, or would the pressure of their workplaces suffocate it? The stakes felt astronomically high. Professional boundaries were designed for order, yet they risked collapsing under the weight of personal desires. As he pulled into his driveway, he caught sight of the unlit windows of his home, a stark reminder of the silent confines he had built around himself. It was always so neat, so controlled, a reflection of the life he had meticulously constructed. But the walls felt oppressive now, the silence overwhelming. He had spent years perfecting a version of himself that had little room for spontaneity or raw emotion. He stepped inside, the familiar surroundings both comforting and stifling. Mark poured himself a glass of water, his reflection staring back at him in the dimly lit kitchen. Was he still the same man staring into the mirror there? The confrontation with Claire had revealed not just a desire for her but a longing for a life that accepted both vulnerabilities and strengths, complexities and simplicities. He needed to find balance. The next day, as he arrived at work, Mark felt a palpable difference in his demeanor. He moved through the office with a new clarity, determined to challenge the restrictive norms he had embraced for so long. During the morning meeting, he spoke up more than he usually had, his voice steady and clear. Ideas spilled forth like a wellspring, and for the first time, he felt the possibility of collaboration beyond titles and statuses. Yet, as enthusiasm surged, doubt flickered. Would his renewed assertiveness be welcomed, or would it be perceived as an affront to those who preferred the status quo? The nuances of office politics nagged at him when he caught sight of Jennifer, his boss, watching him with curiosity. What would she think if she knew the embers of change were igniting a fire within him? At lunch, Mark found himself talking to Claire about their plans outside the office. He spoke openly, allowing his excitement to show, rendering the possibilities tangible. Maybe we should think about what kind of ground rules we want to establish, he suggested, his voice measured. I mean, with us being colleagues and all. Claire nodded thoughtfully. It's important that we navigate this carefully, but I truly believe it can work. We can lead by example, show that relationships can thrive in unconventional settings. There it was, an affirmation that helped solidify a path forward. Ideas swirled in his mind. How could he merge the lessons he was learning personally with his professional life? However, doubt persisted. What if they weren't able to pull it off? What if the connection people felt among coworkers turned sour because they ventured beyond accepted bounds? The potential for gossip, judgment, and scrutiny lurked like a storm on the horizon. At the end of the day, as he leaned back in his chair, Mark made a decision. It was time to approach Jennifer, to speak transparently about his career aspirations and his new direction. If they were to make a success out of this new life, he needed to stand his ground, to prove not only his own capability, but also validate the authenticity of his journey. But what if she pushes back? A small voice in his mind cautioned that it was a risk, true, but wasn't every leap into the unknown an opportunity for growth? A world filled with potential awaited just beyond his fears. His heart raced at the thought of the impending conversation. Did he have the fortitude to face the judgment that might be unleashed? As the evening shadows spilled across the office, Mark's resolve solidified. This was only the beginning of his transformative journey, and challenges were but stepping stones. Could he navigate the professional landscape while nurturing a growing personal relationship? When dawn broke over a new day, would he be ready for the reckoning that awaited? The pressure mounted, and anticipation built within him, promising that the transformation would unearth more than he could have ever imagined. The following day dawned bright and promising, yet the weight of anticipation rested heavily on Mark's shoulders as he prepared for the meeting with Jennifer. He followed his morning routine with mechanical precision, the aroma of coffee finally bringing him to life in the silence of his kitchen. As he stared into his cup, the black liquid mirrored the uncertainties swirling in his mind. How would he frame his aspirations? Would he summon the courage necessary to confront his fears? The drive to work felt elongated, each passing minute amplifying his anxiety. Faced with the looming conversation, Mark contemplated his message. His professional vision had shifted. He wanted more than just a corporate ladder to climb. He sought collaboration and connection, a rebirth of purpose that tied together personal ambition and the budding relationship with Claire. Upon arriving at the office, the realization that he had made a choice to step beyond his own confines settled into his psyche. He armed himself with a clear outline of topics to discuss with Jennifer: his goals within the company, the potential for innovation through teamwork, and the importance of fostering a supportive environment for personal connections. As the clock approached 10, the stillness of the office became deafening. Taking a deep breath, Mark stepped into Jennifer's office, where her demeanor was brisk and formal, a striking contrast to the warmth he hoped to cultivate in his own work life. "Good morning, Mark. What's on your mind?" she asked, an eyebrow slightly raised, suggesting she was prepared for anything but the unexpected. His heart thudded in his chest as he settled into the chair facing her, brave enough to challenge the perceptions that had defined much of his career. "I wanted to discuss my current position and future growth within the company," Mark began, steadier than he felt. "I have ideas about how we can enhance collaboration among teams, particularly by allowing for more personal connections at work." Intrigued, Jennifer leaned back, folding her hands thoughtfully. "Personal connections at work? That's a slippery slope, Mark. While I understand the need for teamwork, it's essential to maintain professionalism, or we risk compromising productivity." "Of course, I appreciate that perspective," he countered, determined. "But I believe there is a synergy that can arise when colleagues genuinely support one another, and that includes personal relationships. I'd like to propose initiatives that encourage this kind of teamwork without crossing boundaries." Her expression morphed from guarded skepticism to one of contemplation. "Initiatives require clear guidelines. If you want to lead this charge, you must also ensure it's done ethically and transparently." Mark nodded, taking in her words. This was a pivotal moment, a chance to embody the confidence he needed to align his professional journey with the deeper connections he longed for personally. "I can create a framework for that," he replied steadfastly, "one that outlines expectations and defines appropriate behavior. It could make all the difference in creating a more dynamic workplace." Jennifer seemed to weigh his suggestion. "Very well, present your proposal next week. But be prepared for those who may not share your vision. Not everyone will be as open-minded as you." The conversation turned into an exploration of potential pitfalls, office dynamics, and how to maintain a professional atmosphere. Mark felt a sense of accomplishment as they wrapped up the discussion. He had managed to advocate not only for his ideas but also for the personal growth he was eager to pursue. As he exited her office, a surge of adrenaline coursed through him. Not only had he voiced his thoughts, but he had also laid the groundwork for a future that might allow room for personal and professional growth. Claire's presence lingered on his mind as he navigated the rest of his day, envisioning how the upcoming proposal would impact not just his career path but also how he engaged with her. Yet just as hope began to blossom, annoying worry crept back in. What if they faced opposition when he introduced these new initiatives? How could he protect both his aspirations and the fragile connection he was building with Claire? The echoes of that uncertainty loomed as he prepared to leave the office, and the horizon of his potential transformation flickered before him, tantalizing yet unsettling. Could he articulate his vision without losing sight of the deeper connections forming in his life, connections that began to hold more weight than he ever anticipated? Tomorrow would demand courage anew as he ventured beyond today, navigating the delicate dance between ambition and affection. The moment of truth was fast approaching, and he could feel the pull toward the unknown, urging him into action. The following week arrived with a heightened sense of urgency for Mark. Armed with his proposal and a drive to succeed, he replayed every detail from his meeting with Jennifer, anticipating the questions and critiques that might come his way. Clarity had flown into focus during his brainstorming sessions, yet the looming presentation felt daunting. He gazed at the scattered papers and digital documents spread across his desk, a chaotic reflection of his swirling thoughts. The day of his presentation dawned, bringing with it an unexpected wave of adrenaline. Mark pulled on a tailored jacket, feeling the fabric almost constricting as he adjusted to the weight of expectation resting on his shoulders. Today would be more than a mere proposal. It was his declaration of intent, a manifesto for change. Each detail mattered, not just for his career, but for the blossoming relationship he cherished with Claire. At the meeting room, the atmosphere was tense, a mixture of skepticism and curiosity radiating from his colleagues. Mark could hear the quiet murmurs as he connected his laptop and prepared to display his ideas. His heart raced, yet his determination anchored him. This was a pivotal moment, not just as a professional, but in redefining who he was in moments of vulnerability and strength. As he initiated the presentation, his hands trembled slightly but quickly steadied as he engaged with his audience. He navigated through the slides, illustrating the nexus of personal connections and workplace efficiency. The future of our company lies in our ability to adapt. A structured approach to fostering relationships can lead to enhanced motivation and innovation, Mark asserted, his voice clear despite the heightened stakes. He encouraged dialogue, actively soliciting feedback from those present, knowing that engaging them in conversation could forge a connection both to his ideas and to each other. The discourse became electric, some voices rising in excitement, while others expressed doubts. Each back and forth illuminated the variety of perspectives in the room, and Mark reveled in holding space for that dialogue. Suddenly it wasn't just about his proposal, it was about a collective vision he could champion. Just as he anticipated a constructive debate, one senior colleague chimed in, his skepticism spilling over. Isn't personal connection just a distraction? What guarantees that this won't compromise our professionalism? Mark embraced the conflict. This was the very challenge he knew he would face. While I understand the reservations, I propose that our dedication to professionalism does not preclude us from being human. The emotional intelligence we cultivate will enhance collaboration, rather than undermine it, he replied, striking a careful balance between humility and confidence. As the discussion unfolded, he realized he wasn't just advocating for his professional ideas but redefining what it meant to lead. This revelation sparked a connection between him and Claire in his mind, her nurturing spirit inspiring his vision for a supportive workplace where individuals were given the grace to thrive. With each rebuttal and affirmation, Mark felt the old fears recede. What would people think of him if he failed? He no longer faltered beneath potential criticisms. Instead, a growing resilience enveloped him. He was not just a cog in a corporate machine, he was a catalyst for a more profound change. By the end of the presentation, an uneasy excitement filled the air. Some colleagues remained skeptical, their arms crossed, while others leaned in, intrigued. Mark noticed Jennifer's expression soften. Perhaps he had nurtured an avenue for dialogue she hadn't anticipated. As he wrapped up, he could sense the uncertainty lingering but also the promise of what lay ahead. Returning to his office, exhilarated yet exhausted, Mark glanced at his phone. A message from Claire lit up the screen. Thinking of you. Can't wait to hear about today. That flicker of hope, threaded with the day's intensity, urged him to forge ahead in every aspect of his life. Professional and personal. Hope surged within him, teetering on the brink of uncertainty. Could these new connections lead to deeper bonds, not just with colleagues but also with Claire? The rhythm of obstacles and triumphs would continue, and the path ahead was laden with complexity. As he prepared to leave, a sense of resolve took root. He was ready to face whatever came next. As he stepped out into the bustling streets, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a fierce exploration of love and ambition, a dangerous dance that demanded unwavering courage. What awaited him next was the possibility of a very different kind of confrontation, one that would challenge not only his professional vision but also the emotional landscapes of his new relationship. Mark felt the weight of a pivotal moment hanging heavily in the air. Following the presentation that had forced him to confront both his professional ambitions and personal desires, he sat at his desk contemplating the journey ahead. The previous weeks had triggered a seismic shift within him, not just in the context of corporate existence, but within the foundations of his heart. He had stepped into the unknown, both championing change in the office and bravely nurturing his budding relationship with Claire, yet uncertainty still loomed. The next few days unfolded in a way that reinforced Mark's new perspectives. The initial skepticism surrounding his proposal began to dissolve as discussions percolated through the various departments. Encouraged by his advocacy for personal connections, colleagues started sharing feedback and innovative ideas that transcended previous boundaries, further validating Mark's belief in empathy as a corporate strategy. They were bridging gaps, collaborating, and cultivating a newfound culture of support. Each small victory deepened his resolve and ignited a passion he thought he had abandoned in the relentless pursuit of success. Yet amidst this professional resurgence, the connection with Claire unfolded at an equally transformative pace. They created rituals, weekday coffee breaks filled with laughter, mindfulness sessions after work, where they poured their hopes and fears into each other's hands. The boundaries of their initial roles began to blur as they entwined their lives, battling insecurities together while embracing the sheer joy of companionship. As he sat with Claire one evening, their children's laughter swirling around them in the background, he felt a wave of clarity wash over him. "You've changed everything," he told her, sincerity weaving through his every word. "You've opened my eyes to what truly matters, both at work and in here." He gestured around their shared space, filled not only with toys but genuine warmth. Claire turned to him, her brow slightly furrowed. "I didn't do anything but be myself, Mark. You did this. You took the leap." Her affirmation sent ripples of confidence coursing through him, affirming the strength he hadn't recognized in himself before. They had navigated uncharted emotional waters, unafraid to delve into vulnerability and explore the depth of their bond. One evening, as twilight enveloped their home, Mark prepared to make yet another step toward solidifying the ground they'd built together. He invited Claire to discuss their future, his heart racing with anticipation and hope. "I want to talk about what we're doing. I want to commit. Not just to us but to being open about our relationship at work." It was a declaration, a promise. "I want to lead this company into a space of authenticity, and I want you by my side fully." A shared silence lingered before Claire responded. Her smile bloomed like daylight. "I want that too, Mark. But we must tread carefully. The office will have questions, and we need to be prepared." They both understood that their commitment extended beyond personal passion. It was a courageous assertion to blend their professional lives with their evolving personal dynamic. The revelation sparked an idea in Mark. He wanted to create a series of workshops designed to empower employees, focusing on emotional intelligence as a cornerstone for workplace success. He envisioned an inclusive atmosphere where passion, creativity, and personal relationships could coexist without undermining professionalism. He wanted to lead by example, fostering an environment that invited vulnerability, leveraging relational dynamics to enhance productivity. They began strategizing and developing the framework together, kindling ideas in that lilting coffee shop where their story had ignited. As they collaborated, Mark discovered a new depth of competence within himself. His ability to harness ideas in ways that resonated emotionally and practically demonstrated his growth as both a person and a leader. With the workshops gaining traction, an intriguing opportunity arose. A major publication known for highlighting pioneering corporate structures expressed interest in documenting Mark's journey, intending to showcase how genuine connection could transform traditional business paradigms. A significant feature spread across professional networks would establish his commitment to integrating personal awareness within corporate climates, an unambiguous testament to the integration of ambition and love. That evening, with the light dimmed and the air thick with anticipation, Mark took a moment to reflect. If I do this, it's not just about elevating my company. It's about creating a legacy of authenticity, he mused, the notebook in front of him filled with ideas scribbled fervently. The realization embodied a transformation deep in his soul, a communal reaction to a shared vision he had once deemed impossible. The next weeks buzzed with activity between organizing workshops, prepping for media coverage, and deepening his connection with Claire. He felt alive. He was no longer the man who merely occupied a position of authority, but a pioneer eager to revitalize corporate culture. Every interaction became more rooted in genuine care and understanding, setting a tone that shifted the landscape, confronting both challenges and triumphs with resilience. On the day of the feature release, Mark braced for the onslaught of responses. As he read through the comments peppered with support and curiosity, he felt both pride and validation. He had not only demonstrated competence but had also embodied the core values of connection and empathy that would guide his family, his work, and his life from that moment forward. In navigating the complex interplay between love and ambition, Mark had emerged transformed. He stood firm in his newfound convictions, celebrated not only for his professional acumen but as a pioneer for change, a man who grasped both love and success harmoniously. From solo dad to corporate leader to partner in love, every role he inhabited interlinked seamlessly, showcasing the beauty of a life draped in connection, understanding, and unapologetically authentic living. Mark Jennings conquered the profound realization that embracing both parts of his life, professional ambition and personal connection, defined the true essence of success. Each step had been forged with intention, every moment a testament to the fact that when people are anchored by love and grounded in purpose, they have the power to redefine the world around them. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. This is the moment to take action. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this enlightening ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this compelling conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.